Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well. You're amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Easter weekend. It's Easter weekend. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend so far, even though for some of you it literally has just started. So who knows? But I do hope that you have a good Easter. Happy Easter to everyone. But anyway, we're getting straight into the meat and potatoes, as there has been a document drop in the Idaho 4 case. Lots and lots of lovely documents. I say lovely, I'll use that term loosely, especially around court documents in the Idaho 4, considering most of the time it's farcical. So tomorrow night, that's it, Sunday, Easter Sunday, we'll be going live and going over the documents together. But I just wanted to touch on a little segment. I'm going to put it on the screen here, right? Because this is talking about the IGG situation again, and saying that both parties they want it removed. They want it removed. There's different reasons for wanting it removed, but ultimately they both want it removed. And it talks about Bryan Kohberger and how they got to Bryan Kohberger, and this is a bit of a bone of contention, because this is the issue that I have, because we have so many people, from the people being, affectionately known as the guilters, and look, when I say guilters, this is what I mean by it. I mean that these are people who flat out say that Bryan Kohberger is guilty and deserves to be executed. That's when I refer to a guilter, that's what I'm referring to. Because don't get me wrong, there are some people who are open-minded enough to not want to condemn the guy to death immediately. But there is a large proportion of people who just feel that they've seen enough evidence to convict him and to execute him already. And it's these people that I can't fathom. I don't get it. I don't understand how you can look at what is out there for public consumption and come to that conclusion. I genuinely can't. I can't compute people's thought process. I can understand people having trust in the system and believing that they've done the work, but there's some of these people who also feel that there's going to be a lot more come out during the trial. So then are you therefore accepting that this will then be a trial by ambush? Because this isn't how this should work. We should be in a situation, and I hate to have to keep reiterating this, but the process should be there is an investigation, and the investigation leads them to a perpetrator or a supposed perpetrator. And this is what we're going to touch on in a second. So investigation leads to a person, and then that person is charged with the crime. And then before it goes to trial, you have prosecution and defense. The prosecution gives the defense all of the evidence they have that they feel proves that the person accused did the crime. So it gives the defense the ability to look at all that evidence and counter it, to poke holes in it. Where there is holes to be poked, they poke away. And I do feel that even what we've seen out for public consumption, that the defence have been able to poke holes in it. If you was to draw a picture of the prosecution's case at this stage, it would resemble Swiss cheese. And I don't think anybody who have got more than one marble rolling about in their head can disagree with that, because there is a massive amount of holes in it. But the thing what still eludes us is how the fuck did they get to Bryan Kohberger in the first place? Now, I appreciate that in the community, everybody is going to have their version of events. This is what happened. This is how his name come about. Some people are going to refer back to the guy who works at Washington State University, the guy, I believe, the parking attendant or the security guard, whatever he is. Some people are going to turn around and say, and I think the vast majority of people believe, that Bryan Kohberger's name came off the back end of the IGG work, that they had these samples of DNA that came from a sheath, and they got the DNA, went to a database, they put a sample into it, and somehow they managed to formulate a tree or come across a tree. But then we've got the fact that they got his dad's DNA, and did they get his dad's DNA and then put that on to somewhere like 23andMe, or did they just compare the dad's DNA with the DNA that they took from the sheath? Why would you even go into the family tree? I don't know. What came first, the chicken or the egg? And I suppose the confusion is why they're going to remove it from being spoken about in the court, because it's just too complex for people to truly grasp. And where some people are smarter, and they're smarter than me, and they're smarter than probably people who are on the jury and kind of understand it, it's not as clear cut as this is what happened. This is all the documentation that shows it, and it shows it in layman's terms so you can see. We're still in this bizarre void of where did Bryan Kohberger's name come from? Because if you look at the documentation and the stuff that is out for public consumption, it would tell you that the FBI gave Payne Bryan Kohberger's name. Now, so the documentation would lead you to believe that, look, we've got a crime scene. They get this sheath and it gets sent to a lab, nothing is found. Goes to another lab, nothing is found. FBI gets hold of it, says, give us it here, cease all your work, we're taking it. They then do whatever they're doing. They then come back to Payne and say, right, this is the name that could potentially be of interest to you. This is the person that you need to look at. But they provide no work, nothing whatsoever, that would say that it was IGG work that led to Bryan Kohberger's name. But we come with this word, tip. So what is the tip? Is there that somebody dropped in a tip to FBI? Is it that FBI felt that Bryan Kohberger was a person of interest because of the Dana Smithers case? And did they fucking get that well wrong? But this is the situation that we're in. So for the people who are out there currently and believe Bryan Kohberger did this crime because they feel that there was a sheath that was found under a victim, that sheath was tested, and it led to a DNA sample that was just taken, put onto 23andMe or whatever. I'm using that as a point of reference. And that then led to Bryan Kohberger. That doesn't seem to be the case here. It doesn't seem that that's the chain of command or the process that happened. Because the court is saying the prosecution and the defense are going to have to together come up with a conclusion, a story that they can provide to the jury to say exactly how they got to Bryan Kohberger. So how can we be 2 years plus down the line and still be in a situation where you're saying, well, how did you get to the accused person? Should that even be a thing? You should know by now exactly the chain of events that led to Bryan Kohberger being arrested and charged with this crime. But there seems to be some fracture somewhere where they're struggling to be able to produce to the public the version of events that specifically led to Bryan Kohberger being fingered. And again, I don't mean like the back of the bike sheds at school. I just mean he's the person who did this crime. So I'll be interested to see exactly, when all's said and done, how they got to Bryan Kohberger. And was it indeed a verbal tip that came in to somebody, or was it a speculative tip based on their belief that he could have been originally involved in another crime? And is that how we now have a situation that appears to be reverse engineering of a case against Bryan Kohberger, while simultaneously you're ignoring DNA at the scene of the crime, which enabled Ann Taylor to be able to raise an alternative suspect version of events? And again, the court have said, look, I'm okay. I'm not gonna say that this is denied, but what you've got to be able to do is provide proof, whether that be actual proof, circumstantial proof, but you've got to provide proof, not just tell me that there's a possibility that this could have been done by someone else. I need a name, yada, 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 the whole 9 yards. But the judge seems to be open to that. You can't deny it, can you? But just read the documents. It looks like had the FBI had not gone to Payne and specifically gave him Bryan Kohberger's name, then there may have been a different outcome here. There may have been something different that happened there. So you do need to know what was the first domino that fell in terms of Bryan Kohberger being Again, fingered. But anyway, I hope you have a fantastic day, a fantastic Easter. Keep your eyes peeled. I may be about later on today. Who knows? Love you all. Mwah.